Welcome, everyone. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. Here we are in the Psychology of Eating podcast. I'm with Ahvanya today. Welcome, Ahvanya.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me here.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're doing this. And for anybody tuning into the podcast for the first time, this is Ahvanya and myself. This is our first and only session together. And we get to see if we can do some good work. So if you could wave your magic wand and have whatever you wanted with food and body, what would that be for you?
I think it's never not trusting myself when it comes to how I eat, what I feel like eating, never looking at the mirror and being like, oh, I don't like that, or like, oh my God, like my belly's so big today. Basically, never ever shaming myself for my eating habits or just the way my body is in the present moment. And I know because of your help and the course, like I have reached a great I have crossed many obstacles, but I still find that voice inside my head, like in the deep roots of my subconscious. So I would really be able to like remove that inner child, that 13-year-old girl or that 6-year-old girl, and be like, just not let her come to the shadow, even if she does, like be so aware of it that, yeah, I'm never negative about food and body and all of that.
Okay, so if you could have your wish, there wouldn't be any negative self-talk, there wouldn't be any judgment about your own body, and you would just sort of trust what you eat and you wouldn't be second guessing yourself, right?
Yeah, a lot of trusting myself that.
So how are you with your weight these days? Are you at the place where you like to be? Are you wishing to lose weight?
So I think I'm pretty happy with where my body is right now. Also, in terms of weight, I think I stopped weighing myself a while back.
Mhm.
And yeah, like actually when I started doing the course, and it's really helped from just my mental health. In terms of like where my body is, I'm quite happy with how it feels, how I feel in it. I could say like the shape, the look. I definitely do want to get like tone up, like get just build more strength in the sense that, and I think that's really connected with even how you're feeling sometimes. Because I know when I'm feeling a little emotionally or mentally weak, and I feel that building that strength will give me that even that mental strength, which I feel like I do need. But in terms of losing weight, I would say no, but there is somewhere a part of me which is like, oh, I could lose more weight. Like I know maybe I'm, yeah. So, but otherwise, if I feel about my body, I feel good and I'm happy where it is.
Mhm. How old are you?
I'm 27.
27. Are you in a relationship? Are you living alone?
So I'm living by myself. I recently moved to Goa, which is like a small coastal town in city in India. And I'm living by myself for the first time, actually. It's me and my 2 cats. Yeah, so that's my living situation. And I'm not in a relationship, but I am. I mean, like I wouldn't like it's not defined, but I mean there is someone that I uh, see a potential relationship with. Like we're just friends right now, and I think like even when you ask me like, do you want to lose weight? What I was thinking about was my previous conversation with this guy, and so I'm 5'11", which is really tall for just this population. Like even most men, I mean women as well, are just shorter than it's not. I'm like above the average height, so even a lot of men are say shorter than me. And for some reason, like all the guys I feel like I've liked have been shorter than me, or have, and he's not like way shorter. Maybe he's like similar height, like an inch shorter. But like I realized like he's like 1 or 2 kgs lighter than me, or like the same weight. And I think like that made me feel a little, yeah, just like big, heavy. Uh, Actually, that made me feel like, okay, like maybe I can lose some weight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason I asked about, weight and if you're happy there is because oftentimes what's going on, not always, but oftentimes when that voice just keeps talking to us, like, oh, this isn't good enough, and this isn't right, and that's not right, and the self-judgment, oftentimes that voice is fueled by, I'm not totally happy with my body. Even if it's, even if you're 90% where you want to be, that 10% where you're not where you want to be can sometimes be a loud noise. And I just think to myself, it might always be something, so, okay, he's just about the same weight as you, and that could make you feel a little heavier. So then the voice in your mind is always going to be weighing yourself, even if you haven't actually weighed yourself. You're always going to be thinking about it. You're always going to be comparing yourself. And I think part of it is just like an ongoing meditation where you're just listening. You're listening to your own mind and you're noticing when that voice comes up. And like, oh, there's that voice again. There's that voice of me wanting to be absolutely right and perfect and just get it exact. And, you know, the voice of perfection, the good news about it is, like, the positive part of the voice of perfection is it keeps us, noticing, and it keeps us wanting to improve. But at the same time, when perfectionism takes hold of us, it could drive us crazy because there's never going to be perfect. You might find a guy that's 3 inches taller and 10 kilos heavier, but he might not be the perfect match for you. There might not be that heart connection or that soul connection or that intellectual connection or a physical connection. We just never know. So it's an interesting challenge. So I think it's a meditation, and you notice when the voice comes up, and you and I get to choose in the moment how much we indulge in that voice and how much we let it take over. So it's at its worst. What happens for you when you find yourself, in self-judgment or looking in the mirror and not approving? Like, what's the worst that happens to you in the moment or that day?
I just feel a little sad. Um, and I think I've become very aware of uh, eating to feel better, because I've always used food as a emotional support. Like, it was a very strong relationship for me, like growing up. I'm a chef as well as, a nutrition coach. So for me, like, I guess that, like, just having that personal relationship has gotten me here. So I I know sometimes I do eat to say fill up, like for love, but if I'm judging myself, I think, yeah, I feel sad. And actually, what you said about it being meditation, I'm becoming more aware of being like, hey, like, I don't have to. I can change how I'm feeling right now. I don't have to carry this feeling of sadness through the day. I can drop it. That's me judging myself, and that's okay. Like, I still love. I mean, I do it physically. I tell myself, okay, I still love my body, and like, give myself a little hug. But yeah, I think it's like that sadness that is the instant reaction of just be like, oh, I'm not good enough, or like,
Yes, yes. And that's a natural reaction to saying, I'm not good enough. It's a little sad, you know. It's of course it's going to bring you down. And I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad you noticed how that thought, the thought called, I'm not good enough, instantly leads to an emotion. I'm sad. And we don't have to go there. Or we don't have to go there for too long. You can be there for 5 minutes. You could be there for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But, no more than 30 minutes. That's enough of your day. Your day is too valuable. Your life is too valuable. So it's so much of it is the practice of, I guess, self-acceptance. And I think it's a lifelong practice, because right now you're as, you're as young and beautiful as you'll ever be. And it doesn't mean you're not going to grow in your beauty, but in terms of your youth, like, here you are. And how can you be present to that and celebrate it? I can't tell you, Ahvanya, how many times I've heard a woman in her 30s, 40s, or 50s say to me, I used to think I had too much weight when I was in my 20s, and I wish I could have that body now. I look at my pictures when I'm in my 20s and I think to myself, what was I thinking?
And I felt that in my early 20s. Like, when I was say 22 or 21, and I'm like, and I still wanted to lose weight then. Like, why? Like, I was, it was, I guess it's the perception that you're striving for, like you said, perfection. The perception of perfection.
And I think it's always important to remember that this is such a universal challenge. Here you are growing up in a culture in India, and the culture in the United States, it has that same sort of viral belief that I'm not good enough. This body's not good enough. We inherit that from the world. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so overpowering, because it has so much momentum. The voice of, I can be better, this could be more perfect. We're constantly being bombarded by media, by social media, by images, by everything that you see in the movies. It's subtle, but it's powerful. And it's telling you, here's what perfection looks like. And here's what you should be striving for as a woman. So it's an act of rebellion in a good way. It's an act of courage to hear that voice that you didn't invent. It's not your problem. It lives in you. It lives in so many people, but it's, in a weird way, it's not personal. It's kind of like a virus that infects people. The virus isn't personal. It just goes into whatever body will be a good host for it.
And when you're sorry to cut you, but when you're talking, like, I'm thinking also more in with how you see, like, a taller man, the woman being shorter, that's how, like, the picture looks like, whether it's movies, pictures, anything. And I think, like, that's also something which is so deep rooted in me, which I'm just realizing that it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to look picture perfect. Like you said, it can be like a soul connection or anything that just it doesn't have to, you don't have to give into the virus.
Yes. And I think, to your point, it's very primal, because if you look in the animal kingdom, generally speaking, in mammals, the male is bigger than the female. Generally speaking, the male is more aggressive than the female. Generally speaking, there's a evolution, and biology has it such that, the female is often raising the children, and traditionally it seems from history that the males have been the hunters and the gatherers. Yeah. So there's something in the feminine mind, in so many mating rituals amongst mammals, amongst whales. Males are competing. Many males are competing for one female. She's looking for the strongest. She's looking for the strongest male. She's looking for the toughest dude so she can get the best genetics, so she can have the best chance that her offspring are going to survive. So all I'm saying is that there's a certain part of our own mammalian brain that's looking for that. So it's understandable. And we're different from the mammals. We're different from the creatures because we're human. And you can write a different story. So have you ever dated men who are taller than you?
No.
Mhm.
I've been with men, like, I mean, intimately, but never dated someone who's taller than me. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting. What what an interesting conundrum that you have. And ultimately your heart will direct you and tell you what to do. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle here, is letting your heart make the choice, no matter who you're with. If your heart's going to make the choice, then there's a good chance it's going to be the right choice. And that means, yeah, you're going to listen to your mind, you're going to listen to what the voices are saying, but you're also going to do your best to not let them run the show.
Mindful. Like
Yeah.
you said, I started doing this practice where when I walk into my house, I'm just like, I'm gonna keep my mind aside, like let the mind be outside when I'm doing my outwardly chores and work. But when I'm home, like at least like, day to day, when you're just say you're cooking or eating or sleeping, keep the mind aside, because yeah, it does like take you into loopholes. And I think I'm just becoming more and more conscious and aware of that.
Yes. I think the 20s, the age group of the 20s, I've always said that I think it might be the hardest time for a human being. Even weirdly harder than the teens. It could be argued, but 20s are not easy because you're no longer a teenager. You're no longer living in your parents' house. You're expected to be an adult, but you're still kind of finding yourself. And you're still, on the runway to find love, to find partnership, and you're learning about who you are like never before. So you're no longer the teenager, but you're truly not yet this independent adult that has all of your life together. And at the same time, in our 20s, especially our late 20s, you start to see, I think like never before, all the old conditioning and all the old patterns and all the old ways of thinking. Those become more clear. Because in our teens and our early 20s, we're very much living in response or reaction to our past. So you've had a certain upbringing, you've had certain, your parents raised you a certain way, you're born in a certain culture, the world has given you certain beliefs. And in the late 20s, we start to have the ability to question that like never before. Like, what do I believe? Who do I want to be? Independent of what you all taught me, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? What's important to me? What are my values? And it's a powerful time. And I think, once you cross that age 30 point, you start to feel a whole different kind of grounding with yourself. There's a real shift from like 29 to 30. So I think these last years of your 20s, you're in the right conversation as far as I'm concerned. Like you're right on time, meaning this is the time to examine your mind. And do these beliefs work for me? Do these thoughts work for me? And who do I want to be as a person? Who do I want to be as a woman? Who do I want to be in relationship with a partner? Those are powerful questions, and I hear you addressing them, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah, I'm like, you actually hit the nail. I'm exactly there. Like, I'm in that mind space and just like living by myself for the first time, and all these questions are coming up, and yeah, it's there's this saying which I heard in a movie, which goes like, adults are just scared children who made it through their teens or like this age.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just resonated with it. But yeah, it's a time, your 20s.
And will often go to the safest place that's familiar to us, which is when I'm uncertain, when I can't control everything in my life, I'm going to go to the old habits and the old thoughts that I know best, which is, oh, if I can't have the perfect life, and if everything's not perfect in life, then at least I can make a perfect body, or I can have a perfect diet. So if I'm eating perfectly and if I look perfect, that sounds like something we can control. Oh, at least that's handled, and that'll take care of a lot of things. So that's the promise that I think, it's the sort of hidden promise that is made to the females of the world. If you can just have the perfect body and the perfect diet, everything's going to be okay. It's just going to all end up good somehow. It's going to be a happy ending. And we know logically that that's not necessarily true, but that belief gets ingrained in us because it's so powerful. Because you've been given the message that your value is your looks. So I hear you looking to change that and looking to transform that.
Major transformation. But I did want to ask, like, when, especially when things like self-doubt or not being able to trust yourself, because I do realize I struggle with this, not only in regards to food, but just in other areas of life, like whether it's like making a career decision or, different things like that. Like, I mean, any advice as to, how to kind of like always know and trust yourself? Like, how I really resonated with the soul lesson, expressing your truth. And I think like that is very linked to like believing yourself strong enough to be like, okay, like this is what I believe in, or this is my truth.
Yes.
So I don't know, like anything like from your experience or your expertise you feel like has worked or really you could guide me on?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's an important question for so many people is, how do I trust myself? And I'm not trusting myself. I'm doubting myself. And part of it, is just time and experience. The more you're alive on planet Earth, the more you get to understand the terrain, the more you understand what's going on out there, you understand what's going on in here, and you're less subject to the opinions of others. Part of one reason why it's hard to trust ourselves is we're concerned about how we're going to look. Like, what are other people going to think? And that takes time. It takes time to free ourselves more and more from the opinions of other people. Meaning, who knows what people will think about you? But if they don't matter to you, then their opinions shouldn't matter. The only opinions that I care about are from the people I care about and that are important to me. Here's the other thing. I think what happens is we often think that trusting myself means I trust that I'm going to make the right choices. I trust that if I do this or I do that, then it's going to have a good outcome. But I don't know if it's going to have a good outcome, because how do I know? So what I want to say is that part of self-trust is trusting that you will stand by yourself, even if you make a choice that didn't work out. Even if you make a decision that turned out, that doesn't feel so good, or wish I didn't make that choice. It's easy then if you say, okay, I'm not going to eat any sugar today, and I don't know if I could trust myself because I like to eat sugar, and if I'm bored or I'm lonely or I'm emotional, I like to turn to food, and then all of a sudden you eat the sugar. And then you eat the sugar and you go into self-attack and you go into self-rejection and you go down that black hole. So that would make me not trust myself because I'm punishing myself. I'm punishing myself for, hey, I did my best today and I ended up emotionally eating. So it's about, are you willing to stand by yourself even when you do something that, you went against your own wishes? Or even when you do something that, that wasn't the right choice, maybe I should have made that other choice, but you still stand by yourself, just like you would stand by your friend or your loved one. You wouldn't tell your best girlfriend, oh, you emotionally ate today, I'm not your friend anymore. You're a loser, you're a willpower weakling. No, you would be supportive of that. So if you can trust that you'll stand by yourself, if you can make that agreement that I'm going to be a good support for me, it's a little bit easier to walk through the world. How does that land for you when I say that?
I think it really makes sense. Like even when you, I would say, like fail, you're still there to support yourself and just kind of be your own best friend, guide, supporter, rooter. Like, yeah, whether, because you never know, like if a decision is the right one for you, unless basically always being by your side. Okay, that lands in the heart.
Yes, yes, because it's so easy to abandon ourselves. And if I abandon myself, then I can't trust myself. And I won't trust the world, because if I abandon me, then what's to stop other people from abandoning me?
Yeah.
So it's really learning how to be your own best friend, to treat yourself like you treat your best friend. If she made a bad decision or if she ate something that she wishes she didn't eat, how would you be with that person? How would you support them? How would you love them?
Yeah.
And there's a place where also it's good to remind yourself that you're still finding your confidence. You're still discovering yourself. You're still discovering your strength and your power and your inner gifts. And you're a work in progress. And that's okay. You don't have to be 100% confident. You could be unconfident sometimes and still stand by yourself.
You don't have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I know I tend to be hard on myself, um, in that term, especially just like having it all figured out, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a meme or a theme going around. I just see it in so many movies and so many TV shows these days where like women are being told that you have to be a superwoman. You have to be strong and you have to be confident and you have to know what you're doing and you have to be a superhero. And that's hard because I don't think that's real life. Real life is, yeah, there's times you're going to be confident and strong. And there's also times when you're going to feel vulnerable and emotional. And there's times when you're going to just feel a little lost. And that's all okay. It's just, again, how do I stand by myself when I'm not feeling confident? Like, oh, here's me, and I'm just not feeling confident today, or I'm not feeling confident in this situation. That's understandable that you wouldn't be feeling confident, as opposed to I should be more confident.
Yeah. There's that line between like pushing yourself and also just accepting where you are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are there places in your life where, areas of your life where you just feel a lot more confident? Certain skills you might have, or
I think definitely my work. Um, so right now I'm working as a nutrition coach for a fitness app. And I think like every time I have a session with the client, and it's not like the sessions that, we've learned from you. It's not like a full, like even a non-modding one is not like a full 90 minute. It might be like a 30 minute, but I mean, like the basic understanding, I try and include all of that. So essentially, when I'm able to help someone just by talking to them, like I think that makes me feel really powerful and confident. Like, yeah, just talking about food and body and healing, because I'm also into like more holistic healings. So I think when I do that as well, um, being in the kitchen and like just feeding people and curating and cooking, I think there is still like doubt that comes in when I'm cooking for, professionally. I think I've struggled with the confidence there, but I think just coaching people, that's something that flows very naturally. And yeah, I feel like I'm confident in that area of my work.
yes.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is because that means that you know the feeling called I'm confident here. This is what confidence in Ahvanya feels like. So you already know that feeling somewhere in your life. And I just find it's often useful in situations where I'm not confident. I might think for a moment to a place where I feel confident and remind myself, oh, this is the feeling that I feel when I'm helping a client. Because it's a feeling, you feel it in your body. There's a certain empowerment, there's a certain, whatever the sensations are in your body.
Yeah.
It's often helpful to just invoke that, just so you can bring that feeling from this one part of your life a little bit forward into other parts of your life. Like, oh, this is what it would feel like to be confident.
Yeah, yeah, you feel it in your solar plexus in the heart, like it's
And
empowering.
yeah, and it's so fascinating how it can be so much easier to help another human being, to give them great wisdom and great advice. We ourselves might have the very same problem that we're advising them on, and we're giving them great advice. And they might love that advice, and they might really take it and use it and better themselves. Uh, so it's a strange thing that when we're giving ourselves to serving another human being, to helping another human being, we we do and can step into our power. We do and can step into a whole other place where we really rise to the occasion. That's why I love doing this work, because it just reminds me, like, oh, this is what it feels like when the energy is flowing and when I'm not worried about my own problems. So there's a certain relief there when we're just helping another human being, and it only helps us.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. I just say it's a beautiful feeling, and sometimes like you said, like you struggle with, I would say, like a similar thing, but when you're able to talk about it objectively, um, maybe you're just like helping something in someone else, which you yourself need healing in.
I was thinking, being that this is the first time you're living alone and you're in a new place, and you're the kind of person who, historically, food is a comfort for you. Part of using food to regulate our emotions, part of emotional eating, is understanding that it's natural for us. There's a place where it's not wrong to turn to food to soothe our emotions, to soothe my loneliness, to soothe my discomfort, to soothe my sadness, because every infant does that. Every child does that. Every crying, screaming little baby, the moment they get mama and the bottle or the breast, they relax. So we have a very deep cellular and genetic memory called feel bad, eat food, feel better. So I think it's just very important to remember that there's a naturalness to us wanting to turn to food when we have emotions that aren't comfortable, because it brings us back to that almost infant place of safety and comfort. That, oh, I've got food in me and somehow that means I'm safe. So, of course it becomes problematic if we're overdoing it. And I think it's important to forgive yourself, because this is just a time when you're doing a lot of things that are new for you and you're stepping into unknown territory. And you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how things are exactly going to turn out. So when we have uncertainty, that can be uncomfortable for us. So all I'm saying is it makes sense that we would turn to food. It's not as if there's something wrong with me because I emotionally eat. No, it just means you're a human being and you're experiencing all the emotions, and sometimes they're a little bit too much and you want to use food. So part of it is asking in any given moment that you notice, oh, I'm about to turn to food to emotionally eat. Sometimes that might be the solution. Sometimes it's helpful to say, okay, I'm emotionally eating right now, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to enjoy it, and it's okay because I had a rough day and I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling lonely, and this is what I want to do. As opposed to you do it anyway, but then while you're doing it, you feel bad about yourself. And after you do it, you feel bad about yourself. I'm going to suggest, if you're going to emotionally eat, choose to do it.
Yeah. Consciously.
Yes. And enjoy it and forgive yourself and get the experience that you want. And in the times that you want to try to do something different, then you ask yourself, what else can I do in this moment other than eat food that might help me soothe myself? And then that's for you to look at your life and look at some of the other things that help you calm and help you relax.
Yeah, I have all my lists, thanks to you, my pleasure list, my self-care list, my feeling better. Just like, it just helps being aware, like what helps you calm down, de-stress, relax. And sometimes like I really need food. It's also just like being a person who loves food. And I realize I love eating. Like I actually love the act of eating, especially when you eat with your hands and you engage all the senses, there's something so grounding about it. There's something so nourishing, which just gets you, yeah, it just makes you feel whole. And whether you're eating like a nourishing bowl or a slice like a pizza, um, I think doing it with that awareness and consciousness and love, yeah. eating is great.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good that you can own that and acknowledge that. And yeah, there's going to be times when we turn to food, and that's not the ideal thing for us to do, but it's so forgivable. Of all the things we can do, that's very forgivable. And I find that the more we're able to forgive and allow and understand that part of us, the easier it becomes to not be in a fight with food. Because there's no fight, really. You're just learning how to do your life in a way that works for you. So all of your life. We emotionally eat. It has nothing to do with food on one level. I'm emotionally eating because I have emotions from the rest of my day that somehow food's going to make it feel better. So I hear you doing that. I hear you you're in your life and you're exploring and you're discovering, and it's not going to look perfect.
Yeah. To get perfection out. The soul is not perfect, it's pure.
Yes.
That saying just kind of stuck with me, and I keep telling myself, and every time, I mean, a lot of times I'm not conscious of the perfection that kind of comes in, but it's there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key takeaways that you're getting from this conversation, or just a key takeaway?
I think the biggest one is not chasing perfection and just accepting what is, whether it's being in an uncertain space, not knowing, and also hanging by yourself, like being your warrior soldier, no matter what life kind of throws at you or like where you go. I guess that is what trust is, that no matter how deep you fall or how high you fly, you'll be there by your side. So being able to show up for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like all of this applies to just so much more than just food. And that's what I love about the way you approach this. It's all connected, it's all jumbled, it's all mixed, but it all makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I hope the conversation was helpful for you. It sounds like it was.
Yes, it really was. I'm very grateful.
Yes, I'm grateful too. I just appreciate you getting on and sharing really openly about your journey. And I think you're in a really good place.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. It
You're welcome.
yeah, sorry.
No, go.
It just, I think it meant a lot, like being able to be here and do this session with you. So I'm truly grateful. Thank you.
I'm so glad. You're so welcome. And I'll see you soon. Take care,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Hey friends, we're so happy that you've joined us for another episode of The Psychology of Eating with Marc David. Are you loving these episodes? Then simply subscribe and you'll never miss an episode again. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a comment below so we can hear more about your own journey with food and body. And if you're curious about what we offer at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, including our internationally acclaimed coach certification training that's rooted in dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition, please head on over to our website, psychologyofeating.com. Until next time, take care, and remember, having the body you want starts with loving the body you have.